Hi everyone. I'm going to wrap up these last couple of weeks by just showing you a nice data presentation tool. So I think this is a nice way to wrap up data that you've collected and already analyzed and try and get it into a meaningful format for whether it be coaches or scientific communication. So very much an outward facing tool as opposed to some of the stuff that you'll have looked at within Power BI, Tableau, etc., which is very much inward facing, used to make athlete decisions and keep the athlete at the center of the picture. This is all about what do we do to project outwards and how do we best communicate what we're starting to see and to find. So the easiest way for me to do this is just to hop straight to that tool. This tool is Datawrapper. So app.datawrapper.de. You just log in, make a free account. There are paid subscription versions of this, but there's not really any value to doing this. I've got some nice horse injury data here, and I'll show you where I got this from. So it's something that might be a nice thing for you to do to play around with this is to hop onto ACC's website, and from here you can look at their data. I was just on this data.gov version, which takes you to this, and you can break this down by all sorts of things. So if we wanted to look at e-scooter injuries, for instance, sports-related concussions and TBIs, given the theme in the best household at the moment, that might be a nice one to do. So this is where I got our horse data from originally. And we can move back to that tab momentarily. So a couple of different ways to create new charts here. So in order to do that, you just click on the type you want. You can either do a chart, a map, or a table. And I've got examples of all of these here. These would be considered tables. This is obviously a map, and this is a chart. So let's start with our chart. Is going to load. Yep, it should do. So first thing we've got to do is just upload our data. This is done either in copy and paste format, or you can upload it as a CSV, much like when you use JASP for research methods, or you can connect to a Google Sheet or an external data set. It likes CSV type values, and it does all the comma separating for you. What you then do is proceed, check to this describe thing, and it starts to have its own internal sort of Excel type feel here. And you can check various things to make sure, is it a date? Is it a number? Is there anything that you need to do to fix it? Which is fine. We're looking pretty good here. We've got a couple of little comments tucked away, but that's fine. Yeah, that seems good. And then we proceed to visualization. So this is what we're going to end up looking like. We can refine this data. We can adjust our chart type here. So if I wanted more of an arrow plot in a direction, it'll do that for me. So has there been an increase or a decrease in a particular category over that time, with our 2021 data being bolded. If we go to refine, we can change colors and all that type of stuff, get thicker, different color keys, everything like that. And we can annotate what we want by clicking on this next tab and look at the layout a bit as well. So heaps of options for that. I'm just going to take that back to a range because I quite like this. I don't necessarily, not too bothered in this data set about the direction, so that's fine. I'll just go back to my dashboard. Right, next we'll take a look at this idea of a table. So we go through the same upload data, check and describe process. So here we're looking at injury site and years. Again, on the visualization, this has done a really nice job of ranking smallest to highest. You can see here we've got a large amount of other and unknown, which suggests people are a bit rubbish at filling in paperwork. But we know now in our equestrian or horse-related injury, lower back and spine is pretty big, as is neck and back of head and shoulder. So we should really be thinking about the upper body if we're thinking about protection and the need for protection here. Not so much thinking about fingers and thumbs, hands and wrists and all that, at least not from a severity of injury point of view and reporting of that injury point of view. Interestingly, we see the head really low down here, but the neck really high. So site of injury suggests people are flipping off or landing funny and trying to protect their head and face. So yeah, interesting. We can again play around with colors, different chart types, all that type of stuff. So I've got split bars here. We can group them. This may or may not do something funny. Yeah, and that just doesn't look great, does it? It doesn't quite tell the story that we want to. Yes, it's maybe nice and interactive, and we can see differences over the years. We could maybe even stack our bars if we wanted to. And again, we start to lose some of the value here. So depending on what we're looking at, depends upon the type of chart we select. Here, I've got really clear delineation between different years and different sites of injury, and that's perfect. I can tell a really nice, convincing story with this. Now, the final one I want to show you, because it's really exciting and everyone sort of loves it, is our map section. This might be really nice if we're looking at data that's linked to particular geographic areas. So really useful for stuff like GDP or obesity rates or teenage pregnancy or drug use or anything, any of those big statistics that normally make headlines. Again, we've got to select the appropriate map. And the thing that makes your map appropriate is the data set that you've got to use. So download your data set first, figure out what fits, and or figure out what fits best. There may be some cases where we don't have data for that, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So when we come to our add data, the data set or the map pre-populates the name column here based on the map that we've downloaded. So you can see down the bottom, we've got Antipodes Islands, Auckland Islands, Campbell Islands, Chatham Islands that don't have any data for them, and they're blurred out. If we were to add values here, these would color in and they would appear on the map as well. But we don't have data for them, so we're not going to put anything there. And we're not going to bias the graph by putting a 0 there either, just to get them on the map. I think it's much fairer to just look at mainland New Zealand across the two islands and go from there. So this is what we get. This is what we've produced. I've picked a nice color scheme here. You can pick some other ones. We're going to go blue to red type thing. I prefer similar or the same color, whichever I had, because we're on a continuum as opposed to positive and negative outcomes, which we may psychologically predispose ourselves to based on color. We can see there's plenty of injuries in the Waikato and around Canterbury, fewer in the West Coast, Tasman and Marlborough, and some middling values in Manawatu and the Bay of Plenty in Northland. So we're getting a good feel for it here. We can play around with values and all that to suit, but the data set should really drive this. I don't think we need to be right down at 0 for our minimum. We should base it on the data that are there. And that's it. That's our map. So that's Datawrapper. I think have a play with it, see what you think, and hopefully it adds a bit of value to some of your summary statistics.